And I think she needed that confrontation with Eloise to happen, because you can't, you shouldn't lie to the people who are closest to you in your life, because it will blow up in your face.
He goes through a real journey. I spent a good few months sort of like in the corner staring at Penn from afar.
Certainly she is embracing life a little more, and it's tentative steps with Violet, but she's certainly embracing life a little more.
In this show, there's quite a lot of antagonism between women.
Yeah, I don't want fans to lose hope completely, but there will be a few ups and downs before we get there, because I think the betrayal feels so big.
Yeah, no, you definitely get to know Francesca a little bit more this season, and she is thrust into the spotlight a little bit, which is not a place that she finds comfortable, and she kind of has to step into her own and kind of step away from the shadows of her siblings. And
Hi Nicola, hi Luke, how have you been doing?
Very good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Nicola, my first question is for you.
Sure.
As they say, Nicola, this is the season of the wallflowers, and Penelope has evolved in the last 2 seasons so beautifully, confronting several incidents and feelings like head on. So how do you think Pen has grown to take these emotions, given how season 2 ended?
She's grown so much. She was such a baby when we met her at first, and she's really making her mistakes in real time, which I think, you know, can sometimes be hard for the audience because they get annoyed at her. And I go, but you've got to remember, she was like 17 at the beginning. She was thrust into society. She, you know, was completely an outcast in her family, and she started to write this gossip column because she was brilliant at it, frankly. But then at the end of season 2, I think she had a certain level of arrogance to her in season 2 about, you know, secretly being the most famous woman in London. And I think she needed that confrontation with Eloise to happen, because you can't, you shouldn't lie to the people who are closest to you in your life, because it will blow up in your face. And also, I think her overhearing Colin sort of make fun of her, I think that needed to happen, because she never saw him as like a real human being. She saw him as this like perfect god on a pedestal, which he's not. He's a wonderful man, but he's a human, normal man. So I think she needed that to happen to her, to where we find her in season 3. She's matured a lot. She's realized a lot of her mistakes, and she's ready to like move forward with her life.
That's thank you for beautifully putting it.
Thank you.
So I'm also excited to see how difficult it will be for her to navigate these conflicts between her loyalty to the Featheringtons and also her own ambitions and desires, because she was leading a double life as a Featherington girl and as Lady Whistledown.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know what? As an actor, that's the kind of stuff that we love, because you give us more to do. And I think that was the joy for us this season. Yeah. It was like so much each episode. The story moves on at such a pace. It's not going to give you a minute to stop. You're going to be like, what, this is happening now? Like, oh God. Yeah. And it was a joy. But she grows up. She's grown up when we meet her at the beginning, but she grows up so much more throughout the season, as does Colin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you've also proven that the oddball can also take in the center stage.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for reading that.
And both of you, could you describe how the romance will be in the season? Because in the first season, it was all about the diamond in the family, and the second was about like a slow burn, forbidden romance. So how will we see it in season 3?
Yeah, I feel like this is the most awaited romance that there's been through in the show. You know, people have been really waiting for this. And I feel like we've got to a really great point. I know you mentioned previously the end of the season, sort of that the comment that Colin makes sort of like humanizes him to Penelope and puts them on a bit of a even playing field. And he comes back and wants to reconnect with his friend and thinks everything's going to be okay. And obviously we've got the obstacle there of trying to resolve that. But immediately we're off into a new chapter and a new dynamic of their friendship. And it's just so interesting to see how many twists and turns it takes before they finally get to like a place of it being slightly okay for a minute.
Yeah. Look, your character has come back to the town after traveling abroad, and certainly your worldview has changed. So more than love, it's the friendship with Pen that you don't want to let go of. And these are like complex situations. So how will he balance the romance and the expectations of the town?
Yeah, absolutely. I think him coming back and wanting to reconnect. And I think there's an element that he felt slightly isolated while he was away, because of the comments that were made at the end of last season. They weren't writing to each other over the summer, which was like a new thing. So maybe he's slightly on edge when he comes back and trying to gauge where their friendship's at. And then I think that's where complications arise, because he doesn't understand these sort of conflicting feelings that he starts to have. And also that he's instigated, he's sort of helped her get to a place where she is pursuing other gentlemen, and quite successfully. And I think that's where the frustration comes from. But he's not mature enough at this point to sort of pinpoint why he feels like that. Is it a protectiveness? Does it feel, I think he goes through a real journey. I spent a good few months sort of like in the corner staring at Penn from afar, which we actually have said it's about time, because she did that to Colin for a long time.
2 years doing that.
So yeah, it's nice to see the tables have turned for a little bit.
Hello, hi Golda, hi Adjoa and Ruth. So good to see you. So I want to start with Golda. The audience recently saw a completely different side of Queen Charlotte as like the story dealt with her younger years. So how will your character continue to shape the events of London's high society in season 3?
I think you'll get more of the same, but different. It's really nice to have a new showrunner this time, so we get a kind of new energy and new input in Jess Browning. The Queen is in the same kind of vibes, but a little bit thrown off her game.
Okay, because she's also tackling personal dilemmas and, a lot of other things that we saw towards the end of Queen Charlotte spin-off series.
Yes, I mean, they are separate entities, but yes, they are of the same umbrella. So yes, of course, one would want to take some of those things that you've experienced and found out that Shonda Rhimes has written for you in Queen Charlotte. Of course, there'll be a little bit of that within the soul of the Queen Charlotte in Bridgerton.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also see that the past and the present come together in such a beautiful way.
And how these 3 women have such a strong bond.
Absolutely. They're a whole pillar of friendship towards, be it the Queen Charlotte series or the Bridgerton series. You've been like the example of friendship through all these years. So, Golda, how will you track down Lady Whistledown? And more importantly, will we have a Queen Charlotte season 2?
Don't know about Queen Charlotte season 2. That's left to the powers that be, who are paid more than me.
And pay our wages.
Yeah, exactly. Pay our wages. And is Whistledown tracked down? You'll have to watch the season, won't you?
Right. Ruth, your character arc is super interesting of them all. And according to me, and there's a chance for Violet to have a love interest as she confides in Agatha about her blooming garden. So on YouTube, we saw one of the comments that said, if she's not going to bring the gardener, I'm going to riot. So
I think I might riot, actually. Yeah. Well, certainly she's embracing life a little more, and it's tentative steps with Violet, but she's certainly embracing life a little more.
We're rooting for her. Yeah. We're all rooting for her.
I'm rooting for her.
Literally rooting for her.
And we rarely see women placing their happiness as a priority, let alone women of that era. So how is Violet gonna navigate these new challenges and dilemmas?
Well, that's quite interesting. I think flirting is flirting, whatever age we're in. So it's going to be tricky and tentative if you're alone, and you're going to sort of be a lot more confident in public, probably. I think that's the way it goes in life in general.
Yeah.
Adjoa, the Queen Charlotte spin-off, like I mentioned before, saw Violet confronting Lady Danbury after discovering her father's relationship. So given that the 3 of your friendships are very essential to the plot, are there going to be some troubled waters laying ahead in season 3 and in the 2 of your relationships?
I think the thing that's that I enjoy the most is that in this show there's quite a lot of antagonism between women. But what's great about these 3 and traveling through the story that the audience now knows from Queen Charlotte is that you you can have little bumps on the road, but there's a depth of friendship that can survive all of that. And that you know your friends, you know their frailties, you know their desires, you know their heartaches, and so you all of that goes into consideration in how you relate to them. So yes, the trickiness that Violet and Agatha have, and that is manifest in season 2, in Queen Charlotte, forgive me, there will be outworkings of that, of course, going into season 3, because we, the three of us know our history.
Yeah, we do.
And then then we move forward with that information into season 3, and the audience, having watched Queen Charlotte, hopefully will also feel more knowledgeable about who these women are and what their lives have been, and so they'll be able to watch the dilemmas they find themselves in season 3, and there are dilemmas. They'll be able to understand what motivates them to behave in the way they do in the face of those dilemmas.
Hi, how have you been doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, all good. So, Claudia, my first question will be to you. Claudia, Eloise, and Penelope are considered the second love story of the season. And obviously, towards the end of season 2, we see her. She's very hurt and she feels very betrayed. How is this season going to test your friendship and bring you two together?
I think they sort of have to, they've been forced into a situation where they have to figure out who they are without each other, which I think is quite useful for young women to, and sometimes things do have to fall apart to get better. I've been saying to people that have been asking, I don't want fans to lose hope completely, but there will be a few ups and downs before we get there, because I think the betrayal feels so big to Eloise that she can't quite let it go. And I think she's probably a bit embarrassed and all. Like, she's been looking for Lady Whistledown, getting in altercations with the Queen, and it was her best mate. So I think she's fuming.
Absolutely. And she's also very protective of Colin, right? Now she's gonna safeguard him because she feels very betrayed, and she wants to keep him together and just not go to the Featheringtons and like all that.
Yeah, I think, there's one thing you finding out that your best friend's Lady Whistledown, but then when you're like, oh, and you're going to be trying to get it on with my brother. This is great. This is real cherry on the cake. That is my life. Yeah, not going to help.
So, Eloise is very known for her intelligence and her approach to like worldly subjects and feminism. So how will she take on the expectations that society has laid on her while she yearns for independence in her own house?
Well, in this series, I feel like she's mostly trying to see what all the fuss is about. I think she's doing it sort of in spite of herself and with a bit of an eye roll, sort of, all right, fine, you're all doing it. I'm fine. I'm going to relent and I'm going to see what you're all doing. But you can't push a triangle into a square and you can't stop a runaway train. And so Eloise can only really do it still within her makeup, which I think is going to be, you can't shake off her rebellion, I don't think.
Right. Hannah, I would really have to ask you this. This is not just Colin's season. This is as much as Francesca's season as well, because your character undergoes like a tremendous evolution. She's usually the quieter sibling. And can we expect more of a character to come in the spotlight more in the season? If I'm not wrong, during the first look poster, we saw you like fiddling with a ring. So how is your
you definitely get to know Francesca a little bit more this season, and she is thrust into the spotlight a little bit, which is not a place that she finds comfortable, and she kind of has to step into her own and kind of step away from the shadows of her siblings and work out who she is for herself as well. I think she's not really had the courage to think for herself and work out what it is that she wants. But yeah, she's on the marriage mart, so we'll see what happens there.
And she also has to like come up to the other siblings and be like, hey, I'm coming up to the marriage mart, so I have to be good to myself and the society, and society has great expectations on her.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a level of expectation, especially after Daphne being the diamond and going through the whole season as like perfectly as she did. And also I think it's something that like she doesn't fight. She knows that this is her turn. She knew that when she turned this age it was going to happen, and she's not fighting that. I think she just wants to get it done so she's not the center of attention for too long.
Yeah.
Jessica, let me ask you this. So you've been depicted as the formidable rival in the Bridgerton family, and particularly in your interactions with the other debutantes. So how does she continue to assert her influence and manipulate the social dynamics, especially because new players are entering the scene?
That is true. She has very strongly. But this time we see a different side. She's kind of abdicated, I feel, that throne. I think she likes to see it as a throne, so I'm going to say that. And opens up and really lets someone in for the first time that we haven't seen yet. So it's kind of a different chapter for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Eloise, are we going to see more of Eloise being more assertive, stubborn, and in her own space, dominating the social circle? How is this all going to come together? Are we going to see more of Eloise's transformation, or is she going to keep her assertiveness together, or how does this happen now?
I mean, if I knew, I still wouldn't be able to tell you. But I think the joy that we've got these books as the foundation from Julia Quinn, amazing. But what I think is really exciting is that we always keep it fresh, and we're always adding little extra gifts here and there for fans. So I think obviously romance is never going to be ignored in Bridgerton, but there are ways that Eloise can do it in Eloise's way. Because like I said before, she's not going to go down without a fight. And I just don't think it's not always going to make sense. But like love also, it's not that Eloise can't have that world or wouldn't be able to enjoy that world. It's just Eloise is going to do it in her way. And it doesn't mean that suddenly Eloise turns into Daphne. I don't think that's going to happen. And I can't play that. As an actor, I'm very limited, actually. So I can only really do Eloise.
You could.
You absolutely I couldn't be a diamond, but yeah, I'll be an emerald.
You're my diamond. Emeralds are better.
There's a lot of thank you so much. Yeah,